Yep, just
nothing better to do.
It looks like, oh.
There she goes.
Oh, there she goes.
Nice. She can stand guard.
She's like this.
She goes in a sphinx position. All right, we are live. We'll just wait for notifications to go out.
What's that?
Whenever someone leaves a comment, I always have to turn the volume down so it doesn't go into the feed.
Oh, somebody did a thumbs down already?
Well, there's only one person here, so it's got to be Chevrolet Diesel Nation. Nice. Although mine could still be updating. You know what you could do with that thumb down? You know what you could do? You could turn it around, turn it up.
Yeah, why we gotta be so negative?
Bring it behind your back.
Friday.
And stick it up your patootie. How about that?
Oh, there's a bunch of people.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, there's 71 people, so I might.
It could have been anybody, not
anyone.
Diesel Nation.
No, we know Diesel Nation.
Yeah, he's a good guy. We don't know him, but we'll assume so. Yeah, so we're just letting everybody meander in. We are starting early today.
Yeah. So we have children that tend to rise with the sun.
Yeah.
And the sun is now rising like at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Early schedule. So
I miss the fall.
We may wind up switching to like summer hours.
I think we should.
Where we'll start at what would be 9 a.m.
we're
our
just
time.
sitting around. We're like, boop, 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 boop.
Well, yeah. I mean, otherwise I would be sitting around for an hour, just not getting into anything too deep because I don't want to get started and have to stop. So summer hours, we may be doing the show a little bit earlier. That may be good for some, it may be worse for others. We apologize if it creates a problem.
And we're recording, and that's okay. We love that you come live, join us live.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so speaking of live, let's get started with the show. It's Friday Live. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
We're going to talk about woodworking and things related to woodworking.
And coffee.
And Tim Tams.
And quilting.
And quilting, and maybe even a little brisket.
Ooh,
We're going to discuss
barbecue.
some brisket. All right, so let's get a couple of thank yous out of the way first.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do that over on Patreon, patreon.com/woodwhisperer. And if you sign up there, basically it's a monthly recurring donation. You can have priority service for your questions, like the folks we're going to have on our list today. And we also want to thank a few people who helped us out on Patreon, including Aaron Pena, Cody Kellogg, and Joe Clemmer. So
Kevin says, do they go to bed when the sun sets? I wish. I wish.
Though there are times in summer when it gets like deep into summer where it's still daylight out and Mateo's got a very large window in his room and the sun, he's like, Daddy, why are we going to sleep? It's like, because it's bedtime, shut up. So yeah, it gets to be a little bit rough.
By the way, we are in the mountain zone, time zone. Mountain zone.
We are in the mountain
zone.
Yes,
Colorado
mountain
is in mountain time zone.
So if we do start early, that would be what, 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. So a little bit early for your West Coasters.
Yeah, they're like, what?
They're just
too early.
Their kids aren't up yet.
Oh, I remember the day when 8 a.m. was early.
I do too.
Now
I remember
like...
Nicole used to work remotely, and her company was on the East Coast. And there were times where they would plan meetings, and she'd have to be in a meeting, ready to go on a call.
They would start it at 9, and so that would be like, depending on, because Arizona's weird, they're half and half.
Right.
So sometimes it would be 6.
Sister,
7.
There were times where your meeting was at 8, and you were complaining about it, like, I gotta get up.
I can't believe they scheduled this meeting this early.
This is horrible. I'm gonna write a strongly worded email.
Yeah, so I didn't know. I didn't know.
You had no idea what life is really like.
What was going to have in store for me.
Let's thank some folks who sent us some cool stuff.
Yes. Let's do all the Tim Tams.
Ness resupplied
Ness and her lovely mother.
With the Tim Tams.
Glenda. Glenda made us some beautiful towels. I don't have them here, but thank you, Glenda. And then Ness wrote a nice little, Ness G, I don't know if she's going to be in the chat room. Is it really early for her? No, it would probably be better, right?
I don't know. She either stays up late.
Yeah.
I think she stays up late.
She says, don't get to catch you live as much as I like to these days, but always find a time to catch up on the show. Thanks for always making me laugh on a Friday. I hope you like your somewhat belated birthday gift. Slam a Tim Tam for me. Haha. Thanks, Ness.
It's very clear to me that Ness does not care about my waistline. You understand how?
I think she's wonderful.
You know how many minutes I got to sit on my
chocolate
bike
mint.
to burn this crap off?
And this is a sip slam. This is like a dark chocolate.
Yeah.
You don't do dark chocolate, but I do. So
it depends on what it's made.
yeah, this is like raspberry flavor.
That's seriously, that's awesome.
That's
Thank you.
really, really nice. And then she made us these awesome coffee mugs. I love Fallout.
Yeah, this
she
was
knows it
throw
too.
another shrimp on a Barbie.
And
That's what I say when I think of Australia.
And then I have a new apron because guess what? It's white. I better not put it on. It's gonna make the white balance all weird.
Yeah. No, it won't. It's fine.
But I could use this.
Listen to Nicole throwing out the camera terminology.
But I could use this now that I know how to make barbecue.
That's right.
From one of our other things, which is, do you want to do this now?
Sure. So for years, I mean, for the longest time,
Who likes Steven Reichlin?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Ever since I got into cooking barbecue and grilling, I started following a gentleman by the name of Steven Reichlin. So years ago, guy's just really talented.
He's had a PBS show.
A chef, yeah, he's had multiple shows.
Since 2006, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while. Anyway, kind of learned everything I know about smoking meats from this dude. And it's been kind of just a little bit of a dream of mine to go and actually meet him. And we saved up and had a trip planned. It almost didn't happen again, but we finally
We've tried
went.
multiple times over the years.
So it's basically like a 3-day seminar dealing with like how to cook and grill and smoke and all that stuff. So we got to meet Steven.
We made, what was it we made?
We made a delicious.
More like you made it.
It was a variation of a cedar plank salmon.
Yeah.
And I think I'm actually going to do one of his recipes as an alder plank salmon at the end of the Hall Tree build as like a little bonus for everybody. We'll do a little recipe. I think it'll be fun.
So this is his new book called The Brisket Chronicles.
Brisket Chronicles.
And he gave us a copy of it.
So we have a copy. We had it intentionally signed generically by the man himself, because we want to give this away on the show.
Yep.
And I realize it's not related to woodworking, but I also know a lot of you...
But it uses wood.
Yeah, it does use wood. A lot of you love to barbecue, so this is something you guys might know who this gentleman is. So if you are interested in this, you want to just do it in the chat?
I'm just going to give it to Michael Gomez because he knows Barbecue University.
Okay.
So...
Because he goes, BBQ you!
BBQ you!
There you go.
Michael, you get a signed copy because we don't need two.
Yeah, we got one sign for us and one sign for someone on the show.
So
hopefully you'll enjoy that.
Michael Gomez, email me, nicole@thewoodwhisperer.com, and I will try to get this in the mail today to you because I am going to the post office because I finally finished my sweater quilt. And I know, again, not woodworking, but I know that, so, you know.
At some point today, we will discuss woodworking.
Yeah, we will, but I'm just so proud of it.
You should be.
I want to share it.
Watch your cord.
So here's my quilt that I made. I started it in January. Things got a little derailed. I did binding for the first time. I was super nervous. That's the back of it.
Oh. There you go.
So this is my sweater quilt. These are all my old sweaters.
So like you could wrap yourself in a little bit of Nicole.
There you
Just
go.
Snuggle up with some Nicole.
I'm gonna send this
All
to my
of
mom.
her cardigans and sweaters.
Yeah. My mom
Man,
doesn't watch.
heavy.
It's super heavy. My mom doesn't watch this show, so she doesn't know it's coming. This is a belated birthday present for her. I was gonna do it because her birthday's in January, but I missed that. And then I was like, well, maybe Mother's Day, and then I missed that. So now it's just, I'm done. Yay! And it was interesting. I wasn't sure how sewing sweater material was going to go, but because I did, like, they have this thing called interfacing, but I got little black
Sounds complex.
things all over the floor downstairs. And Mateo's like, what is all that? I'm like, just
All the little fabric nubs.
sweater. It's just sweater.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. It looks great.
Thank you. I was super, and the binding is you border it.
Yeah.
I know it's exciting. This is how I feel about woodworking, by
Job
the
well
way.
done.
So there you go.
Alrighty.
And now we talk about the woodworking.
Now let's talk about some legs.
Some legs.
So I am doing while we're finishing up the Hall Tree, things are just taking a while. The finish is drying. We're getting there. That is a guild build. The next project we're doing is a dining table, and that's for the free site. So I'm designing this thing just, you know how I do these things, somewhat on the fly, somewhat premeditated, but mostly on the fly. So one of the things I wanted to do with this, and I think a lot of this is kind of influenced by Jory Brigham, and I blame him for all of this. I don't normally build in this kind of, I don't even want to give it a label because I'm not all that well versed in styles and periods and what specific details will warrant giving it that label. But it is definitely a little bit more of a modern aesthetic than I typically build with straight lines, bevels, angles, stuff like that. So I started playing with this leg design. And the legs are going to be at about a 15-degree angle here. And I wanted to add some bevels. And sometimes when you add bevels, I mean, we've already got the angle action here. We've also got a taper. So if this is your starting angle, right, this outside portion of the leg, this inside angle is at about five additional degrees. So this would be, you know, if this is 75, this guy is at 70. Math is so hard. So it is tapered in a little bit, but we have more options than just that. What else can we do to this leg to fancy it up a bit? Well, bevels. You can start to add some bevels on these outside corners. And if you do more than just a simple bevel, how about we taper a bevel? Excuse me. So the bevel starts wide at the top and then narrows down to the tip. And if you put them in the right place or use them in the right way, you could do some pretty clever things. The problem is, you can go too far. And that's one thing that I find with design, and I'm not really, I say this all the time, not really a designer. You know, I just kind of fake my way through it and I try to learn as I go and try to get better with every project. But one thing I've learned about myself is once I understand little tips and tricks, how to do certain things when it comes to design, the most valuable thing for me is restraint. Practicing, you know, even though I know I could put that in there, should I put that in there? So I had 2 leg blanks, and these were both just prototypes. The table will be out of walnut. Don't worry, Nicole, I won't hit you. And I was practicing with these to see what would happen if I started to go a little bit wonky. So this one is an example of what not to do. This is when things go too far, and I started to put bevels in places where there wasn't really a rhyme or reason to it. I was just like, let's see what it would look like. So in this case, I have a bevel that starts wide at the bottom and tapers up to the top. And then on the outside, I've got one that it starts narrow and then widens out as it goes to the top. And it's interesting, but I think it's a complete design failure in that sense. It just doesn't make sense. You can't just, I guess if you're designing something that you just want to give a label of art, you can do whatever you want. For me, these elements have to make sense. There has to be a reason, and there has to be some kind of harmonious integration into the project for me to commit to it. So this one was just wonky and weird, and I called that a failure. Then I went back to my second leg, because I had 2 tries, wonky. And instead of being all wonky and crazy fancy modern guy, I decided to be a little bit more conservative. And this time, I went down to all 4 points on the bottom, started with a wider taper, a wider bevel, and then tapered up to the top where it gets skinny again and just kind of peters out there. And the end result is a much more sensible, look. Everything is kind of symmetrical in a way. I've got the angle that I want there, and I've also got this effect of thinning out the leg, making it look more narrow at the bottom than it truly is. And then when you view the table from this angle, this would be the end of the table where the leg comes out this way, it does give it this visual appearance that the leg is also sort of tapered in. Even though it's truly not tapered on this plane, it just kind of thins it out a little bit. And I think that looks pretty good. So this is what we're gonna go with. I just wanted to show this as an example as a non-designer, how I kind of fuddle through my designs a little bit by simply finding the things that aren't right. Taking something too far, that's usually a good way to find what is in the range of something that's good. Well, do something where it's not enough, and then do something where it's too much. And then somewhere between those 2 points is the answer to your design question. So that's something that works for me. I thought I would just share that with you guys.
Want to do some questions?
Yeah.
Jay in the chat room is like, it's fun to watch Nicole go in and out of paying attention to the chat and paying attention to Mark.
No, let's clarify. At what point is she actually paying attention to me? I listen back to the show.
I kind of listen.
I listen back to the show sometimes in the audio format, like the podcast version. And when I'm live, I don't notice as much. But when I'm listening, I'm like, she is not paying attention at all. She has no idea what I'm talking about or like where my next transition is going to go. All right.
I'm prepping,
No, you've got a busy job.
I got a very busy job.
I couldn't split my brain into to multiple places like that.
Honestly, I can't either. It's just, I tried to.
I'm aware of that.
I'm a laser focused person, so I try to multitask.
Used to drive me nuts when we first met, and she would be watching a TV show like a kid who just zones out, and I would ask her a question. I'm standing right next to her. she just has this thing where she can only focus on one thing. And
I can do like tunnel vision.
And where I guess maybe it's an upbringing or
my mom used to hate
a personality thing. I don't know what it is, but I know like in my house, when someone walks in and talks to you, that actually takes precedence over anything else that's happening.
It does,
but not for Nicole.
But I don't hear you. Like,
Right.
I literally
no, it's not like
don't
you're being
even know
rude.
you're there.
Yeah, you're not being rude.
No.
You just you've zoned out so much that you just don't hear anything.
I'm really good at focusing on the task at hand, whether it be TV or quilting.
Dwight says it's called selective listening. It's an acquired skill.
Really? Acquired.
I think he's just making that
I've been
up.
doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah. Okay, let's get going here. Okay, where's my questions? So,
All right.
these folks, again, I'm going to grab questions from the Patreon list, and Nicole's going to grab them from YouTube.
Hey, you want to? I just got a real quick. James says, "Do you sell card scrapers on the TWW Guild shop? But do I need a different shape in practice?"
The primary shape of a card scraper that's going to get the most use is this one, right? The rectangle. Do you need a gooseneck? Well, if you're doing curves and you want to use a scraper, you're probably going to need a gooseneck. They also make ones that have more subtle curves, concave curves, convex curves. So there are different shapes out there, but this is the one that's going to do the lion's share of the work for most people. So yeah, you could utilize them, but that's why we only have one. That's really all we need is that one. But
That's the only one we sell.
It's not a bad idea to buy one of those 3-piece sets, and this way you've got multiple profiles that you can use.
Cool.
Okay, so Aaron Pena says, what kind of wood and or plywood do you use for shop furniture? When I contacted my local lumber yard for shop grade plywood, as you mentioned in one of your past videos, can't remember exactly which one, they pointed me toward Chinese birch. Is this what you would expect, or is there something else that I should be asking for? I'm still a noob when it comes to woodworking and a little intimidated by the lumber yard, but getting there thanks to your videos. All right, so Aaron, what I use sometimes is not the best example, because when I'm doing a guild build on a miter station, for instance, I just kind of want everything to be as close to perfect as I can, so I might use something like Baltic birch for that. That's kind of overkill. Not kind of, it's overkill for shop cabinets. Baltic birch is a great building material. It's very stable, lots of plies, but it's pretty expensive. So that's why when I say shop grade, we're talking about stuff that's like C level, D level grade material that doesn't really have nice faces. But as long as it's stable and doesn't warp and doesn't have any movement issues, it's a good material to use for shop cabinets. Why? Because shop cabinets are just shop cabinets. Who cares what they look like? Most of it's covered up by drawer fronts or a top. The only time you ever see the face of your shop cabinets is like if you have an exposed side at the end of a bank. So that's why I usually recommend that. Now, yes, that Chinese birch could very well be fine as long as it's not, a lot of the imported stuff sometimes can come loaded down with moisture so that as it dries, you wind up getting a potato chip. When it's all said and done, you don't want that. But I don't know what that material is specifically. You would have to buy some and see how it behaves. If it behaves, then, and the price is right, that's the other thing, you should probably be paying like, excuse me, no more than like $50 a sheet for it, ideally. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, it just kind of depends on what you're buying and where. When I used to buy shop grade in Arizona, there was a dealer that had birch D3 is what they called it. And the D and the 3, I don't know plywood grades very well, but that's not great plywood in terms of its face quality, and that's perfectly fine. What I got it for was the combo core, basically regular plywood at the innermost core, and then an MDF layer on the outside, which kept it nice and smooth with no voids. Which made it a pretty stable plywood. And I found that to actually be a great foundation for veneering projects and shop cabinets and all that stuff. So that's along the lines of what you want to look like. But again, what you found could very well be it. The idea is find something inexpensive and fairly stable. That's your shop grade plywood.
Roger Galding said, Hi Mark, you mentioned tomato pie last week. We found an Alabama tomato recipe. Have you got your own recipe? Sounds great. So keen on trying it. I just wanted to say we definitely do, and in fact we made a video that features it. If you go to the website and search for pizza peel, you'll find it.
Yep, so, it's at the end of that video.
I will put a link in the chat.
I'm going to say this.
We have a video for that.
And maybe this is just the Jersey boy in me. I have my suspicions about an Alabama tomato pie recipe.
I'm going to guess it might be very thick.
I actually would, well, my guess is when you go outside of Jersey and you look at tomato pie, it becomes a little bit more literal in terms of a tomato pie, where it's like a little bit of crust and just nothing but tomatoes on it.
Oh, yeah.
That said, I would love to see this recipe. So if you have a means to send it to us, I do want to see what this Alabama tomato pie actually
Millie's
is.
dropping hot ones.
Oh, Millie. And she
And
walks
she just
away
walked
too.
away.
What a little turd. Okay, Joe Clemmer wrote in. He says,
Hey, Joe.
when you're building, yo, Joe.
Oh, my God.
That's a nasty one. With the understanding, it's very distracting.
I know it is. It's like making my eyes water.
Okay, when you're building, with the understanding your finish is paint, what, if anything, do you do different? This is a really good question. So when I built the hall tree, I had to be careful with that because a lot of the things I started to do with its design and the details, because I knew I was going to paint it, it's just sticking around. I knew I was going to paint it. I started to think in terms of, well, some things with the construction are easier if we do it this way, but it puts a seam at the front, right? That's one of the things. So if you have, let's say, a face frame rabbet and you've got a joint coming in together for the side. So where the side piece comes into the front rabbet, you could have, just depending on how it aids the construction process, you could have the joint facing to the side of the cabinet, or you could have the rabbet constructed in such a way that you actually have the seam where those two pieces come together at the front. So if having the seam at the front makes it easier to build, that's something that you can do with a painted piece, right? Because you're just going to cover it up. If there's a little gap, you use some filler, it's fine. If you are doing a clear finish, you don't want that seam at the front. You want the seam on the side. So if it's a little bit more difficult to build, then you just got to do what you got to do because you don't want that seam to be visible. The other thing is I may not normally, pop as many brad nails into a project as I did for this hall tree, but because I was using paint, it doesn't matter. You're just going to put some filler, sand it back. No one will ever know that there was a brad nail popped into that location. So those are the primary things. I might make decisions about how to join things just to simplify them so that it's covered with paint. It really isn't going to matter. And I think painting does make a project a little bit more forgiving and a little bit easier to build. That said, with the hall tree, I knew not everyone was going to want to paint it. So when I designed it, it was kind of like I didn't get to enjoy that whole joy of painting something because I knew some people would not want to see those seams and would not be making those same decisions. So I built it so that it could be clear coated or just stained, even though I wound up painting it.
Jason asked, can you talk about your decision to use milk paint on the hall tree? Did you just do that?
Yeah, so no.
Oh, okay.
I thought you meant that I just do that on the project.
Yeah.
We just did it.
Yeah.
So the reason I went with that is because number one, I just wanted a black paint and I wanted it to have a matte finish. Well, one of the best ways to do that is to go with milk paint, but I didn't want actual milk paint. And I know that General Finishes milk paint is not truly milk paint. It's an acrylic paint with a matte finish. So it's got, pretty good durability right off the hop. It's got that matte look to it, very easy to spray. And I like working with the company. General Finishes is even though I've gotten a little bit further away from VOC-laden finishes, I still have a lot of respect for General Finishes and I like their products. So when I looked at their line, they had a lamp black that looked like a good color for me. And I knew I could use their high performance top coat. I think it turned out all right.
I think it looks wonderful.
I used their high performance. You can, if you want to get up, you can go get a door and we can show it. Does that sound like something you want to do? Okay,
I'll go do it.
If the mood strikes you.
I'll do it.
So I knew I wanted to stay in that line, and General Finishes had products top to bottom that would get me through this whole thing, so that's the reason I went with milk paint. Keep in mind, this is not the same as like a traditional milk paint. If it comes in a can pre-mixed, just grab any door.
I can find the doors.
Like most milk paint that you purchase, true milk paint is going to be in a powdered form. And you have to mix that powder with water. Do you remember Woodworkers Fighting Cancer build? The toy box. That was when Nicole made an appearance painting. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and then I was like, you can finish it.
Right, and then I put on the wig. Remember that? So anyway, if you're interested in true, genuine milk paint, go take a look at that toy box build and you'll see the application of milk paint. But I think for the layman, it's just easier, simpler to apply something like General Finishes milk paint. They really should on that label, though, put quotes around milk paint. It is disingenuous to call it milk paint. It's milk paint.
Milk-like.
Milkish paint.
Paint.
So
finish what you're doing.
Yeah, this is one of the doors. This is complete now.
Feels very smooth.
Yeah, came off good right off the gun. That's what we're shooting for. If you're spraying with HVLP, if you can get that perfect finish off the gun that doesn't need any more work, that's the ultimate right there. So this has been finished, a couple coats of milk paint, then a couple coats, actually just one coat so far of General Finishes High Performance Satin, and it gives you this sort of appearance. And this is what I was going for.
So Ness G is in the chat, and she just said, "G'day, Spags. Almost missed you. Glad that you got your parcel."
G'day, Ness.
From Ness and Mom. Cheers.
Thank you so much. You guys are too nice. You're too good to us.
You really are.
Okay, let's move on, shall we? We do have more HVLP stuff to talk about later.
Okay.
Alan Lilich, he says, "Happy QOS, Spags. After sanding, I blow things off with compressed air, then wipe down with mineral spirits. I let the mineral spirits dry fully before applying the first coat of finish. My go-to is Armor Seal. Should I go ahead and do the first coat without waiting?" Okay, well, mineral spirits is just the thinner. You can use that to thin down oil-based finishes. There is really no harm that I could think of in not waiting for that mineral spirits to completely evaporate off of the surface. It's compatible with the finish. Yeah, it might thin the finish out a little bit more if there's some soaked in, but on that first coat of finish, the wood is just going to absorb and it's going to pull it all in anyway. That's thirsty wood sound. Yeah, so I don't think it really matters. That first coat, you could just kind of like blow it on with a hose, and then wipe off the excess. You can be messy on the first coat because you're probably going to wind up giving it a little sanding after the fact anyway. So I don't think you should, if you're really in a rush and there's a reason that you want to go quickly, I don't see any reason in waiting for it to fully evaporate. That said, it shouldn't take that long for it to fully evaporate, right? Maybe put a fan on, get a little fresh air or something, and it'll go away pretty quickly. But I don't see any harm for the first coat in just moving right to the Armor Seal.
Allison said she's new to woodworking, probably more of a maker at this point. I would like to start buying rough lumber and need a joiner and planer. Which would you buy first?
Okay, I do actually have an article on a website about this.
Oh, yeah?
I think the planer is the better first tool if you can only buy one. Just in terms of what it does, the versatility, how you buy your material, and the fact that there are other ways, reasonable ways.
Oh, there it is. Which comes first? Planer or joiner?
Exact same question.
Oh my goodness.
The answer, just to kind of spoil the ending for you, is the planer. You could buy a lot of pre-surfaced lumber. Having control over the thickness of your lumber, I think, is generally more valuable than having a jointer that could put that square edge or the flat face on it. I just think you'll get more out of the planer when it's alone. As fast as you can, try to get that jointer, because otherwise you'll basically be using like jigs on the table saw. You can make little sleds to joint edges so you get that 90-degree nice straight edge. You can use your, if you have a router table, you could use that. If you have a straight edge and a flush trim bit, you can edge joint some boards. So again, that's why I think, you need them both if you're really going to process a lot of rough lumber, but I think you'll get more bang for the buck out of the planer as the first initial purchase. All right, who do I got here?
Another one?
Yeah, I got one from, actually I have quite a few today.
Okay.
Okay, so this is from Brody Bricky. He says, furniture design considerations. What do you recommend we look for when designing a piece to ensure complementary colors? Excuse me, everyone but Shannon seems to like walnut and maple, which is true, he doesn't. What other combos work well? Cherry and walnut, straight grain or figured? How to balance? Thanks for strong-arming Daryl into coming back in the guild. I didn't have to push him too hard. I think he likes it. Okay, so what are we talking about? Okay, combining woods. Again, when I talked about designing earlier with the legs and I talked about restraint, never is that more valid than when we're talking about combining wood species. So this is something that I don't have any definitive information for you in the sense of here's a rule to follow, because a lot of this can be based on opinion. What I think looks good, you may not necessarily agree with.
Yeah, I might look at it and go,
Yeah, so I think, some people love contrast, right? So you've got that walnut maple combo. You'll see things like babinga and maple or purple heart and maple. People do enjoy seeing that contrast, but it absolutely, I tease Shannon about it, but I know where he's coming from. That level of contrast sometimes can be a little much. So then when you go to things that are not necessarily contrast, but they fall more into the complementary category, and that's when you put something like walnut and cherry combination that you mentioned. I've put those two together many times, and I think they go great together. As the cherry warms up and darkens, it kind of gets a little closer to the walnut, and then it's just a very subtle, blend between the two. But beyond that, I do like to keep grain very similar. So even if the color looks good together, if you combine a wood that is fairly, it doesn't have really wide open pores. So let's say you're combining, cherry with red oak. Red oak is the grain is really, really deep. The pore pockets are deep. You've got those cathedral grain patterns running throughout. The grain in red oak is just very noticeable. But then you put that with cherry, where it's much more subdued, and you don't have a lot of that surface irregularity. Also consider that once you apply finish over these things, especially if you go with a film finish, that open-pored, open-grained wood is going to actually look very different than the stuff that doesn't have that, like the cherry. So that might be a combination. Does Dougie fall down the steps? That's a combination that I wouldn't necessarily like. The colors may look okay if you just take them sort of from a 30,000-foot view, but the grain just doesn't go well together. So those are the things to think about: the grain, the color, and then just exercise restraint, because too much of a good thing is going to be a bad thing. And that's an inadequate answer, but that's the best I could do on short notice.
Yeah. I forgot to mention.
Oh boy.
So back in 2016, wow, so 3 years ago, we did this thing called Guild Scholarships. So I know there's been a few people in the chat room talking about what's the Guild, what's the link to the Guild, what is the Guild? So the Guild is our online woodworking school, basically, where Mark and other instructors give you everything you need to build a project. The videos, the plans, the support, all of that. Not everybody can afford to purchase a project, but we think it's an amazing value and an amazing service. So I reopened the Guild scholarships. And in fact, we've even had Guild members donate money. We are providing we have three categories. We're providing 9 scholarships total. Student, adult, and military. I'm adding military because we have a lot of military viewers that actually use woodworking and a lot of, to help them through PTSD and stuff like that.
Sure. Therapy.
So we are donating 9 as of right now. I think I have probably 4 more to add to it based on other Guild members actually donating on the Guild side. I have a scholarship option that people can add more scholarships to the. I will tell you, the last time I did this, I had to read through almost 200 applications. Yikes. So I will disappoint you. You might not get one. Not everybody's going to be a winner on this. But if you have been wanting to join the Guild and you can't necessarily afford it, take a look, go to thewoodwhisperer.com. It's the first post. It says Guild scholarship applications open. You have until the end of June, so you have no excuses that you missed this. June 30th is when I'm closing it, and then that is going to be when I go through and read all of them. So it's actually, I probably didn't open them up because it's a hard process to go through, because a lot of you are deserving, but that is the guidelines of it. So there's even an FAQ. If you go to the main page, I give you tips on filling out your application. Don't just give me a 1-sentence answer. But also don't give me a book. So I'm just trying to get a feel for the people that are asking. Because this is like a $300 value scholarship, $400 or whatever. You're going to get a past project that's already completed and your choice of 3 future projects. And then you're going to be a member and get all the fun stuff and all the benefits. So awesome. I totally forgot to bring that up, but yeah, it's open. Head over to thewoodwhisperer.com to learn more about it.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay, Chris Kalnassi says, unsure if an MFT, that's the multifunction table from Festool, would be worthwhile for me. I know that the tracksaw is helpful, but have you comboed yours with the OF1400 router? And aside from the router, what benefit does the MFT have over breaking down sheets on the floor and then cross-cut on a sled or the Incra 5000? All right, so I don't really get the most out of my MFT. A lot of people use it more extensively than I do. For me, it's like a small panel saw. And basically what that does for me is it allows me to cut anything within the width of the table, the front to back dimension of the table. You can get pretty wide pieces in there, so cabinet sides, hall tree parts, things that are this wide. That thing is always set up for 90-degree cuts, dead on for me, so that I could just throw that piece of material down, bring down the track, and I've got my 90 degrees. The advantage is it's very fast, it's already set up. Now, can you do some of that stuff on the floor? Absolutely. Are there tracksaw components that you can use to allow you to get those nice square cuts? Well, we talked about that woodpecker's model the other day for the track saw. That keeps you nice and square. If you've got the Festool, well, actually, there's a couple different tracks that it will work with. So something like that is really good if you're doing it on the floor. But again, at the MFT, you've got a little more control. It's a nice stable work surface. You've got a track in the back so you can have a stop that pops down, and then you can get repeated cuts. Makes it a little bit more like the table saw in that sense. And there's, of course, you can do all kinds of clamping to it. You can, there's work holding elements that you can put on the side tracks, the top, all those little dog holes in the top can be used for clamps. But again, I only scratched the surface of its use. Do you absolutely need it? Heck no. There's so many other ways that you can do these things these days that I don't think it's a must buy. And over time, you know how these things go. Shop organization, shop tools, it's an evolution. And there may be a time that I have enough other alternative ways of doing things and I prefer them that I phase that out. But we haven't gotten there yet. So you mentioned a table saw and sleds. You're going to be a lot more limited in capacity there in terms of how wide those pieces can get compared to what you can do with the MFT. So that's just another argument why you might consider it depending on the kind of work you do. Okay, should I move on to another one here?
Sure.
I still got 4 questions.
Yeah, I got some too.
Positron
In
Mike.
the hopper. Oh, that's a cool name.
Yeah, it is. Hey Jay, we got our confirmation on those racks. So I'm buying racks for lumber storage because I'm lazy. And there's a local Granger where we can go pick those up. Jay was already out getting some finish, and I was like, hey, while you're out, you're not that far from the Granger place. I've been waiting for the confirmation email to say your order is ready for pickup. It just came in. Jay just walked in the door. So I think he's going to have to go back out.
James, in the chat room, James Thompson just said, I will donate $100 towards the military scholarship. Let me know how to do that. I'm going to put a link in the chat. It's on where you do the scholarship donations is actually on the Guild site. So the woodwhispererguild.com/product/guild-scholarship.
What?
-program-donate.
That's so easy to remember.
If you just go underneath store, you'll find it.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right, what else we got here? Positron Mike says, as a beginner woodworker, I've been contemplating joining the guild. However, as a primarily hand tool user, I'm not sure if it will be beneficial. The picture frame guild project was interesting. However, it was very power tool focused. Is this typical on the other guild projects? Is there a guild project you would recommend for primarily hand tool users? Okay, so I would say at best, the guild can be described as like a hybrid environment. The lion's share of the projects are being made by myself and Matt Cremona, and I think we both kind of fall into that category where we use power tools mostly, but we do dive into hand tools a lot when it comes to doing the fine finesse work, some joinery aspects, but it is definitely going to feature a lot of power tools. So if you are looking for there are times you could watch someone do something with a power tool, and as a hand tool user, you go, well, I know how to do that with my hand tools. You don't need the person to demo it with a hand tool. But if you actually want the demonstration with the hand tool to see those specific techniques, I honestly think you would be disappointed in the guild in general. There are projects that are a little bit, like let's say something like the shaker table. That's a very basic project in terms of, tabletop, legs, some dovetails, some mortise and tenon joinery. If you're going to be a hand tool, if you're going to attempt a all hand tool project, that might be a good one to jump in on, but it is not going to guide you through every step the way that the guild is intended to unless you actually have some of those power tools. So as much as I'd love to have you in the guild, I don't want you to be dissatisfied when you get there. So I don't know that the guild is the right choice for an exclusive hand tool user.
Yeah. No.
Because that's just not how we do
Did
things.
you mention Shannon's? Because he's exclusive.
So yes, if you are looking for that sort of instruction, Shannon, the Renaissance Woodworker, has a website called the Hand Tool School. It's handtoolschool.net.
Net.
And that is kind of like a hand tool analog to what the Guild does. He'll take you through projects, start to finish. He'll take you through, what are you chewing? What is that? Give me this. Piece of chalk. He'll take you through techniques, and he breaks his stuff down a little bit differently.
Michael Gomez, Shannon recommendation coming in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Look, he's a friend.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Hey.
So anyway, go check out the Hand Tool School. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Just quickly, because I didn't get his question, Frankie says, Nicole, can you please ask Mark about the router basics video? My kids are on my shoulder bugging me about it. I don't remember what your question was. I think he wants you to do a router basic video.
Sounds like it. Because I haven't done one, so that probably is the only thing he can...
Write it down on the whiteboard.
Okay. I'll get on it. It is tricky at this stage, and I do find like there was an advantage to when we first started. When I was earlier in my career, a lot of the information on the basics, it was fresher in my mind.
Yeah.
So being able to deliver that in a way that would be useful to others, because I was at that same, or let's say I was just maybe 1 or 2 steps past that point, it was easier to look back and say, boy, that's distracting. The dogs are fighting on the steps. It was easier to look back 2 stages and go, okay, here's the best way to lay this out. Here's the details that people are going to want to know. And now I find it actually more difficult as an instructor to go back and hit those basics.
We've had a number of people go back to older videos and say, please do an updated version of this. Number one, because it looks like butt on YouTube.
Because it's in 4:3, 240p resolution.
And my answer to that is go on Amazon. It looks great on Amazon.
It looks better. Yeah,
it looks
we do have
way
better
on
versions.
Amazon.
So yeah, I mean, that's something we could definitely do in the future. We're so project focused now. And there are so many instructional videos on the basics out there that I don't feel as inclined to go back and redo the basics.
I do think it's interesting that I'll bring up something and we're like, oh, you should do that. And you're like, oh, it's already been done. I'm like, but you haven't done it.
Right, and I get it. I understand that. People want to see our take on it.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. Well, yeah, we'll consider it. We'll have to figure something out.
We got a whole bunch of stuff to do.
Bob DeVries says, when starting a project, how do you select what wood you're going to use? Each species has different working and strength properties, as well as color and visual texture. I assume it varies by project type, but do you have a method where, for example, you start with color, then grain, then strength? Okay, well, for me...
It's usually what I'm like wanting at the time.
Well, I think the first thing is it inside or outside?
Yeah.
Right? That's the first question to ask, because the material we're going to use will absolutely put us into... These are considerations, these are not considerations. If it's inside or outside, it's just almost a flow chart in a way. So if we're going inside, then everything can work inside. And it comes down to, okay, here's some things we need to avoid. Either I don't like working with them, I think it's going to be a little bit too soft for the application. We start to get a little bit more into function where you could rule some woods out. And then once you rule them out based on function, maybe it's not strong enough or just, I don't know, something about it is inappropriate for the location. Then it comes down to color. And then so sometimes when we're talking about inside stuff, I simply skip right to color because I, in my mind, have already eliminated a bunch of woods that I don't think are appropriate. So what do I want this piece to look like in the space it's going to go? When you're talking about an indoor project, there is, like, just about every wood will work. So it really does come down to aesthetic choices. You can use a wood because it's super strong, but they're all going to hold up. If you have good joinery and you build it well, most things are going to stand up to most conditions, right? If you're building something, I don't know, I can't even think of something that really would absolutely require the hardest of hardwoods for an interior project.
Well,
there might be things, but ultimately most woods are going to work for most applications. So now it's a question of aesthetics, grain and color.
We had that whole conversation about teak. We were noticing teak furniture everywhere.
Sure.
I haven't told you this, but constantly on the outdoor table refinish, how's it holding up? How's it holding up?
That's going to be...
I feel like...
I got to do an update on it because
do.
I wanted people to see this finish, and I know it's a good finish, but it didn't hold up.
No.
And we need to... Dang, yo. And we need to figure out why and explain why, so that people, it's not that if you use that finish, it's not going to hold up. It's just with this particular set of conditions and the exact materials I used, this is the result. And it is what it is. So, but again, that's a whole thing. That's a debacle is what that is.
It's like potato chips.
Yeah. Okay, so Nick Silva wrote in, happy Friday. He says, I have an HVLP question this week. I got 2 in a row here for HVLP. Since you've been using your Fuji sprayer for painting the hall tree, how much overspray can you expect when using an HVLP? Is it something you'd be okay using indoors in the shop, or would you go with a brush or manual method instead? Okay, I would never spray in the shop. I've done it a couple times, and it's always a bad idea. The overspray, you just want to spray 1 or 2 little parts, fine. You know, you can air it out, a little bit of overspray, no big deal. If you're spraying a project in the shop, it gets everywhere. This is not just something that goes within the little area that you're spraying. It gets airborne, and it will go on your walls, it'll go on your tools, it'll go on your tool tops, your tables, everything. And you will get a cloud and foggy dust in the shop that you do not want that. So absolutely, unless you have some kind of spray booth sort of situation with a big fan and a filter and good cross ventilation for fresh air to come in, absolutely avoid spraying inside if you can. I won't do it anymore. So when I spray, I just go out in the driveway. And what we've been doing is laying down a big tarp to protect the ground. And then we have a big Broncos thing.
Make a big
outline.
Outline of it.
So we've got this big Broncos tent that last year we had a cul-de-sac barbecue and we needed a tent. That's all that Sam's Club had. So I've got a Broncos tent now. Go Broncos, I guess. So that gives us the overhead coverage so we don't have direct sun. And then we have the big giant tarp on the ground to protect the ground. Even with that, after we did the painting, and we thought like, oh, the overspray is not that bad. It's not going that far, right? We moved the tarp and there was a nice outline where the tarp was. Now, granted, it was water-based and the next rainfall kind of cleaned it up. But do not underestimate how far overspray can travel.
Little particles.
Yeah, once it gets airborne and that finish is atomized, it's very light and can travel very far. So you do have to be careful.
Since you are talking about HVLP, Mason said, looking to get a spray gun to apply finish and maybe some paint.
Okay.
Not looking to spend hundreds, but would like a good one. Any recommendations?
Well, the problem is, you got to think long-term what you're going to do. If you're going to do a lot of paint, you need something powerful, or you need to just say, forget HVLP, let's go with an airless sprayer. So products by Graco, for instance, they make really nice airless sprayers, and you can spray latex paint.
He just said maybe some paint. So he's looking at, I think, primarily for finish.
So if you're doing primarily clear finishes and stains and possibly some paint, I would say go with at least a 3-stage turbine. You want enough power.
So is that like a Fuji?
Fuji spray has some 3, like a Q3, Minimite 3.
Minimite. What about the if he already has the compressor, that gun that they came out with?
Well, yeah, there's conversion guns.
Yeah.
That's another option as well. But just one thing at a time.
All right.
Relax, Nicole.
Sorry.
If you go,
I'm actually, when I'm listening, you can tell I get engaged.
So you want at least a 3-stage turbine because you need the power to push that thicker bodied finish through. You can get a tip size that's a little bit bigger, and that'll allow more flow of a thicker bodied material, and you probably still want to dilute that finish a little bit. If the budget is there, just go to a 5-stage turbine. Fuji makes a Q5, and you generally aren't going to need to thin very much at all, if at all, depending on the paint that you use. And it will certainly handle every clear finish you can throw at it.
Does the number just mean?
Number of stages. So the way they describe the power level of it is a 1-stage is the cheapest and the least powerful, 2-stage, 3-stage, 4-stage, 5-stage.
So is it like a stick shift? Like stage 1? I'm trying to understand
well, what you do,
why there's stages.
You sit on top of it, right? You put the stick shift in first, and then you let off the clutch, hit a little gas.
Like, what's the point of 5 stages? Like, is the motor in there, like, shifting, or how does that work?
I don't know the details of how. It's a vacuum cleaner, right? And the number of stages in this vacuum cleaner determines how powerful it is. What that actually means, you're going to have to Google that. It could, like, be the number of fans or something like that. I don't know. But the more stages, the more power.
Okay.
You're really complicating this.
Hey, I am newbie.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the perspective of somebody that might be thinking the same thing. Like, what's with the stages?
You guys want to come to Denver later on? You might see Nicole cruising around town on her turbine, arm hanging out the window. She's shifting gears. It's got a 5-stage, baby.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
it's output of air and power is what it comes down to. That's all people need to know about it.
All right.
So look into turbines. Those are a great solution. If you want to go, like let's say you have a really powerful compressor, that's where your power is coming from. You don't necessarily need a turbine. You can get a conversion gun that allow you to convert that, you know.
I gotta get the dogs out before they knock the camera over.
Okay. You can convert that compressed air into something that makes sense for an HVLP situation. So that's also an option for you. I actually don't really do much with that because I don't have a big compressor. Even when I did, I've always had these turbines, and I love how portable they are. I've even gone to job sites and used them. They're great for that. So I'm kind of just in that world, and that's what I use. Erlex makes great turbines for entry level. Rockler has their own inexpensive turbine, and then of course if you want to bump up to more of the pro level brands, you can get into things like Fuji Spray, Apollo, and also Fuji just in the last couple of years has come out with lower level hobby pro, semi pro. I don't know all the differences between them. By the way, we do have a video on turbines that you might want to check out that features a lot of those Fujis.
And you even have a Erlex video from the early days.
Very Erlex, early.
Okay. Nick, thank you. Stages equal the number of fans in the unit.
That's what I said. I did say that. I did say that, Nicole.
I know.
And it was just a guess.
I know.
But I did say that. Okay, so last HVLP question I have is from Sean Harrison. He says, I was wondering if you have a video on setup and going through the basics of HVLP, maybe in a guild video or on YouTube. This is something I've wanted to dabble into for a while and have an upcoming cabinet project. Let's see, thinking of getting into the HVLP game. So if you look at our website, go to the search, change the thing to videos. There's a little selector for filters.
Ooh, look at that.
And search HVLP. You'll find a couple of videos. The Erlex video will be there. I did a video that just says choosing the right turbine. And then one, waterborne finishes in HVLP. That was one where I actually took some time to show how I try to set up the gun, how I try to approach a cabinet. And look, I'm not the most experienced HVLP sprayer guy. There are admittedly better resources out there for you to check out, but those are free. You can take a look at it. If you want to spend a few bucks, I would say look into Fine Woodworking's. They got a little booklet, comes with a DVD. I believe Jeff Jewett wrote this. And it's, he's a very experienced woodworker with a lot of great finishing advice, but that's going to give you a little bit more of the A to Z on spray finishing. It's a little red booklet. It might even be on Amazon.
Okay.
So look for like HVLP spray and Taunton. Google that and see if you could find which one that is. Maybe we could put it in the Amazon store.
Yeah, I put the Brisket Chronicles in the Amazon store.
There you go.
What's HVLP?
Taunton. Taunton. Or if you're from Trenton, you call it Taunton.
Taunton. Straight out of Taunton.
Straight out of Taunton, baby.
No, I don't.
Okay, we'll look for it. Anyway, or search for HVLP Jewett, Jewitt. Why am I doing this live on the show?
I don't know.
It must not be on. Maybe it's out of print. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not there.
Do you have any other questions?
I do. I have a lot. Austin V. Pap did a super chat and said, is it okay to drive in super chat? Oh, well, go buy some coffee or something. Be careful, Austin.
Nicole drives and sprays at the same time, so it's fine.
What?
In your 5-speed.
In my five
She likes a manual transmission. She's an old-fashioned
girl. I learned on a manual. Yeah. It was a little AMC Renault that Did
that pay off for you?
That I flipped. Whoops.
She said, oh, it's a rabbit.
No, it's just me on a gravel road. It was like that creek gravel stuff, and the back tire blew.
You just being a teenager?
I'm like driving, we're going out. And then it went, and it hit we're in the country. I lived in the country. And then it hit the side, and then it flipped over.
Good job.
It was scary.
Oh, no kidding.
I was in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, what do I do?
I'm upside down now.
I was.
This is not correct. Something's wrong about this.
Seatbelts, kids, seatbelts.
All right, what else we got?
Paul Bear did super chat. Received the tracksaw square from the giveaway last week. Oh, cool. Looking forward to breaking down some plywood. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome.
Enjoy it.
I'm glad you got it,
Be careful
Paul.
with those little wing nuts there. You got to tighten them, but you don't have much leverage. So try to get that thing tight and set, and then just be careful when you put it down on the ground. It's easy to knock out of 90. So.
And then another
Double
super
check.
chat from Russell Farmer. Haven't been able to watch for a couple of weeks live. Missed you guys. Here's a $5 for some Java.
Thank you so much, Russell.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
We also have some questions I've been pulling. So as you talk, I just pull questions.
Yeah, I know what your job is.
Do you want to answer this one? I don't know if you want to answer this one yet.
Someone asked about the Guild turning project that's coming, that we're filming in September. We're still in discussions, like negotiating the details of that with Ashley. I don't know for sure if, when, what, but when it's, as soon as we know something, you'll know something.
Yeah. The projects are up. The other projects, though.
Yeah, we got a ton of projects for end of 2019 and into 2020.
And you do need 3 of those pre-orders to get the 40% off.
Yep.
So let's see, we got a question here from Charles. So what exactly is the difference between milk paint and flat latex paint? Did you cover that?
Well, no, we didn't get into the specifics of it.
Okay.
And it's been a while since I looked into milk paint. Milk paint is basically
powder,
like the oldest formulation of paint known to man. This is something that was used very early on. I don't even know exactly. It's like a lime thing or something, and you mix it with water, and it's very powdery.
Chalky.
It's a very chalky type finish. When we're talking about like the acrylic or latex, that's just a modern formulation of paint with pigments and a binder. That's what we all know and love as, regular wall paint. But milk paint is a very different beast. It's a very interesting product. If you go to the Genuine Milk Paint Company's website, they have tons of information about the history of milk paint, how it's produced. It's one of the simplest, most natural ways to add color to a project that you want to build. You just have to make sure it's the look you want, that the durability of it is what you want, if you need to top coat it or not. It's just a very interesting material.
So Don Woodles, he said, about 30 years ago, I flipped a Renault Alliance in the snow. What's with those cars? They were like, such a light car. Have you ever seen AMC Renaults? They were just tiny little cars. I could have pushed it over if I tried myself.
And you did.
Well, I didn't mean to.
By driving wonky.
We have another question here from Patty. Any hints from hiding seams that you paint? Would spackle or joint compound work?
You could. I have wood filler. If I'm going to paint something, I've got a couple of cans of wood filler. Even just the cheap generic wood filler you can get at Home Depot works fine. And the key is to simply overfill it, and then sand it back nice and smooth. You may sometimes confront something where you don't even see it until after the paint is applied. So it might not be a bad idea once you identify that. Sand it back a little bit, put a little more filler on there, sand it again, and then recoat. But ultimately, that's what I do. I guess you could use, spackling compound or joint compound on something like that if you wanted to. I used to buy the big cans of Durham's wood putty, which is just it's Durham's putty. I don't think it's wood putty. What is it? I don't know what it is. It's Durham's. That's the brand. It's got the muscle guy on the front. But I like it because it's a powder, and you can mix as much as you need for any given project. You could also use something like Bondo. A lot of people use that for a really strong, durable filler.
Bondo
for everybody. So yeah, absolutely, you can use all of those things to get the job done.
It Seems Dark said, yay, my book arrived yesterday. I'm in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Thanks, guys. Mark, they are amazing. Great job indeed. Love you guys. Kisses from
Alessandro.
Alessandro.
Thank you, Alessandro.
I haven't heard much from international.
I think most of them arrived,
yeah.
For the most part, but it's awesome to see. It's a long trip for a little tiny book.
I know, right? Kojak Silverback, any suggestions for a good complementary wood for wormy maple, ambrosia maple, making a smaller gift box?
Walnut. You're going to get, with ambrosia maple, wormy maple, you sort of get those grayish, bluish streaks in there. So I like the idea of going into the darker realm. Your accessory wood or your accent wood is a play on the darker elements of those maples. So it kind of ties in a little bit there. Personally, that's what I would go with. A nice walnut might be a good coupling.
Someone asked if you have any videos on wood filler. I searched for wood filler and there's 5 videos that came up. Do you remember any of these?
Well, I used, for rubbing out a high gloss finish, I used Timbermade as a pour filler.
Oh, okay.
There is a video on fixing common woodworking mistakes, and we talked about using filler as a repair mechanism. 99% of the time, when I talk about wood filler, I'm going to talk about Timbermate. I've been using Timbermate wood fillers for years. Early on, they made themselves known to us and sent us a couple of samples. And their wood filler is great. It doesn't shrink. It's water-based. Even if it dries in the can, you can put a little water in there and reactivate it, and it takes stain. So I found that their color matches are closer and much more accurate than any other brand that I've used in the past. So there may be other good ones, but that's all I use because it works. And I don't feel the need to, I don't fill wood very often, but when I do, that stuff just fits the bill.
And they are not an advertiser. They don't pay us for any of that.
Never have been. I will say that they did give us some free stock like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And because I don't use it that often, I still have that stock. So
well, they have I'm looking at red oak, mahogany.
Their color matches are so good.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Even on woods where you don't think it would hold
they even
up
have a
well.
teak. They have a teak wood filler.
Something like cherry, for instance, that changes color over time. There's times that I've done repairs that even as the wood ages, I still have trouble seeing that repair. Or maybe it's just because I stopped looking at it.
So I'll put the cherry Timbermate in the Friday Live store over at Amazon.com/thewoodwhisperer if you're interested in picking up some of that.
That works.
Let's see. We got a question here from Kevin G. Hi, Mark. Building a baby and dog gate, looking to do mortise and tenon on the joints. First time attempting that kind of joint. Watched your video on it. Do you think that joint is good for the stress?
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a joint that's better for that kind of stress. The mortise and tenon is kind of the bread and butter of quality woodworking. And that joint, if you're going to use one and it's a good quality joint and you've constructed it well, I don't know that there's a stronger one. You know, those two pieces will be locked together. Baby and dog gates get abused. They get, as I found out with our gates, they get stood on, and the kids will try to hang and swing on them. So you're talking about a frame that's going to get some significant abuse. Mortise and tenon is the way to go. Absolutely.
Let's see.
There it is. Durham's Rock Hard Putty. Thank you, Michael. I couldn't remember the exact name, but I knew it wasn't wood putty.
Daniel Learn, I have realized the need for a shoulder plane. I also need a good block plane. With the Lee-Nielsen block plane, would the Lee-Nielsen block plane where the iron goes all the way across be good, or should I buy two separate planes?
Okay, this is actually like a chapter in hybrid woodworking.
Oh, is it?
So the Lee-Nielsen rabbiting block plane is the one he's talking about. I recommended that as a good all-around solution if you are just starting out and you don't want to buy a whole bunch of extra planes. That is this guy right here. So because the blade goes all the way out to the outside edge, you've got something that can go right up on a tenon shoulder, right up on a rabbit's shoulder, and this is, like I said, the rabbiting block plane. It also has these little knickers on the side. They're just little circular blades that you could tilt down, which score the fibers, which is really great because as you're going across the grain on a tenon, it'll blow out on the opposite side, so you want to make sure that you cut the grain as you're cutting. So this is a good all-around kind of jack-of-all-trades tool. It does the things the block plane can do, and then it does the additional things that a rabbiting or a shoulder plane might be able to do. Is it the best at those things? Like many things, electronics, stuff like that. Stereo equipment is a good example. I always prefer separate gear as opposed to all-in-one solutions because they just do their jobs better because each piece in the set is more specialized. So if the budget is there, I absolutely think the better solution is to go with a shoulder plane and then get yourself a good quality block plane, right? So it just depends on where you're at, how much you want to spend, and what type of work you want to do with it. But I think it is a perfectly viable solution. If you're ready to upgrade at some point, this is going to sell. You should have no problem recuperating 95% of your investment.
Daniel has hybrid woodworking. He goes, I just got that book. I'll have to get reading it sooner than planned.
There's a tool chapter where I talk about this process of deciding what the right solution is. We talk about the low-angle jack in there as well. Don't forget router plane, one of the best hand tools you'll ever add to your collection. Thank me later. But this one can do a lot of the things that, let's say, the shoulder plane can do. So you do have to kind of weigh your options and consider. Shannon and I always have this argument back and forth because that's what we do. That he thinks that the router plane is the better solution. I agree, the router plane is fantastic, but he always makes fun of me for enjoying my shoulder planes because he thinks they're a waste of time.
So people are coming in for the 10 o'clock time.
Welcome to the 10 o'clock hour.
Sorry, and somebody's like, I missed the announcement. Well,
there was really no good announcement.
It was literally 5 minutes before.
It was me
9 o'clock.
sitting at the computer going, I'm going to sit around for another hour and 15 minutes doing nothing. So can we just do the show?
Yeah.
So we apologize for not communicating.
But from now, we are going to do these summer hours, I believe. So I will.
Summer
I try to put an event on Facebook, on our Facebook page, with the. Oh, I need to update our calendar too. I will update the calendar.
Hey, speaking of summer, I did a one-day sale yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I'm going to extend it a day.
Okay.
So if you are interested in the Adirondack Chair in the Guild, that's the green and green inspired Adirondack Chair, that build is 20% off because it's summertime and this is the time you want to build things like outdoor chairs. It's a beautiful chair. It's absolutely one of my funnest projects I've ever made. We've got 2 of them sitting on the patio out there. This one is a unique project because one of the things that's great about the way we do things in the Guild is we can go back and follow up with the project. So the last video in that series is me looking at those chairs 6 years later after having like 4+ years of Arizona sun and then a couple years, maybe a year, of Colorado weather, and me having completely ignored them. I did nothing to them. I just let them bake in the sun. So you'll see me take them into the shop, evaluate the damage that was done, compare the 2 finishes that I had used previously, and then make a game plan for how I'm going to finish them to last at least another 4 or 5 years. So I do that in the video and actually show you the new finish. It was pretty cool to be able to revisit those. So that project, 20% off in the Guild right now, the woodwhispererguild.com. Green and green Adirondack chair. And today I'm going to have to, just one more day, and then I'm going to close the sale.
A lot of new woodworkers start with that project too.
Oh, really?
I remember poker guy. Anyway, he said that was his first ever woodworking project.
Poker guy. What is his name?
No.
We did the poker chip tray.
Yeah, the poker chip tray, and he narrated it.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yes.
Forget his name.
I'm the worst at names. If you don't know me.
Any other questions?
I do have one more from Rudy. How can I get rid of that oily feeling from my cutting board? I'm using Tried and True, like you mentioned before, but it's been a few weeks, and if I wipe it down, I will get some of it rubbed off. That's
interesting. Now, it makes me feel like you may have applied too much, because if you apply it thinly, it should cure. You know, like within a couple of days, it should be dry to the touch, and then within weeks, you'll get that full cure happening. If you're still getting oil like actively coming off of the surface, it makes me feel like you may have flooded the surface, which means especially if it's an end grain cutting board and you flood that on with a brush or a sponge or even a rag, it's going to soak it in very deep because we're just talking oil here. It'll soak it in, and that stuff is kind of cut off from easy air exchange, and oxygen just can't get down into that grain. So what happens is it kind of leaches up to the surface, you wipe it off, and then more leaches up to the surface, and it can, I guess it's kind of like a weeping of oil. It can weep oil for a very long time. So how long is it going to take for that to stop? I don't know. If you can get the board into like a higher temperature situation with good air exchange, don't put it in direct sun, but something that's just maybe a room that's a little bit warmer than the rest of the rooms in the house, and you can get good air exchange, that will help speed that up. But how long it's going to take for it to stop, I don't know. That stuff does dry though, but it only dries if you give it a chance to dry, and by layering finish on top of finish on top of finish, it's never going to dry, or at least it's going to take a long time. Phil Gordon. Hey, Phil Gordon.
So if you're a fan of poker, I looked at the poker chip tray video. We never thanked him in the write-up. In the write-up. So you're listening to Phil Gordon.
The voice of Phil Gordon.
Yes.
Anyone who watches like the old poker TV shows.
He was the poker advisor,
the professional, right?
On Celebrity Texas Hold'em on Bravo. That's how I knew him, because I was like, Phil Gordon. I'm a fan of Phil Gordon.
Okay.
So watch the poker chip tray. I was looking, the Deadpool bandsaw box.
Yeah.
That hardly has any views. Do you think it's because you used the word Deadpool in it? YouTube squashed it?
Or Deadpool is really divisive, like as a Marvel character. I think he's kind of a love-hate character.
You think?
And maybe people just don't care about it.
Like, I was surprised that video just didn't do anything.
I don't know.
Go watch the Deadpool
I don't
video.
pay attention to this stuff, Nicole.
I loved it.
Numbers make me nervous.
I know. I
just build furniture.
On occasion.
I'll let you worry about the numbers.
I just thought it was weird.
Go watch the Deadpool box, you guys.
Bandsaw. Go watch the poker chip tray and the Deadpool.
It was the most useless, non-functional box I've ever made, but go watch it. What are you doing just sitting here? Oh yeah, don't forget the thumbs up on your way out.
Oh yeah.
You know, someone said 2 thumbs up. What the heck?
We should.
I mean, 2 thumbs down.
That's okay.
Harry,
Hey.
he said 2 thumbs down. WTF?
We're not,
Well, the first one came in the minute we
Yeah.
started it.
somebody.
So someone's out there going like this. I'm waiting. I know Mark's going to do it. There it is. Yeah! I feel
show 'em.
vindicated now.
My voice has been heard.
I've been heard. Okay.
All
What else do we got?
I
Anything else?
think just pick a winner. You want to pick a winner?
Winner, chicken dinner.
I'll put it in the chat room for those of you who want to watch the Phil Gordon. At the very end, this was when Mateo was 2. So he's
Yeah.
and it's me, Mark, and Mateo doing a poker game, and Phil narrating it, which is
That
hilarious.
was pretty
It was
cute.
super cute.
Okay, let's give Nick Silva
Nick.
for his HVLP question
Oh yeah, that's a great
about
question.
spraying indoors.
Nick Silva, if you're
Hopefully
watching
Nick is
this,
not going to do now.
Send me an email, nicole@thewoodwhisperer.com, and I will get you hooked up with a guild project.
Smash that thumbs up. Anything else? Are we good?
I think we are good.
Just a little side note. A couple weeks ago, we discussed how happy we were that Duncan switched to paper
You're going to bring that
cups.
up.
Look, this is a little socio-political
Yeah,
in a sense, but we, we're not going to anger anybody.
No.
So we were talking about how, we do drink a lot of Dunkin', and we
Go through the drive-through.
go through the drive-through, so it's not that easy to like bring your own thing.
Yeah.
So
Because that was the answer to many. They're like, just bring your own. I'm
Right.
like, I get it, but
So
doesn't work
we're
like
looking
that.
at how much styrofoam we produce, right? Or how much styrofoam garbage we make just by purchasing the coffee. And then, the paper cups started, at least locally. So we're like, oh, yay, it's a recyclable product. And then I got an email from a guy, I have to keep him anonymous, but let's just say he's in the industry and knows a lot about these cups. He says it's just basically marketing fluff. He's like, the problem is the paper is actually not recyclable and the styrofoam is. And the bottom line is like, what makes a good Facebook video? Stuff floating in the ocean, right?
Yeah,
Well, what does paper do? It
Sink.
eventually sinks. So you don't see it. It looks like the styrofoam is the big environmental hazard. But the reality is what's actually better for the environment? The styrofoam cups.
Interesting.
And we fell victim to that sort of like level of knowledge that makes you dangerous,
Yeah.
which is like you don't actually know what's happening. So anyway, I looked it up and read a few articles on it, and that seems to be the case, that the styrofoam is actually the more environmentally friendly material,
That's
but it
interesting.
suffers from a little bit of a marketing reputation problem.
Wah,
So,
wah.
wah, there it is.
So
Take that for what you will. And let's get out of here before the conversation gets political.
yeah, I don't want to step in that anymore.
Anyways. All right, what else we got? Anything? We're done?
I think we're done. I just want to quickly say thank you to Joe for donating to the Guild scholarships. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I will be putting that to good use and adding some more. That's how we're doing it.
Yep, that's how we're doing it.
All right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your woodworking.
It is going to be
Getting
June.
a shot this weekend.
June.
Can you
It's
believe it
officially-
already?
Is it a summer? Is it officially
I think it's been
summer?
summer for a little bit, hasn't it?
Oh, I thought it was been spring.
I have no idea. It's always spring in my mind, Nicole. I just run around chasing butterflies. I talked about chasing butterflies last week, too.
Yeah.
That's why it's fresh on my mind. All right. You want to hear something cool?
Oh, sure.
I don't know why I'm telling stories.
Because we're just delaying it.
I don't know why.
This is just fluff.
Sitting in the office yesterday. And
The hawk.
I have been admiring and watching this hawk that's in our neighborhood. And we saw like the aftermath of an attack that had happened, and I guess one of the little bunnies in the neighborhood fell victim to this hawk, and we saw the leftovers. It was really gross. But I've been like just super interested in what this hawk is doing. The other day, I'm driving back from Home Depot, beautiful weather, door is open. That's not a safe way to drive. Windows open, arms out, and I look up. 2 of these hawks are circling around right over our neighborhood, and I'm just admiring them. I'm like, man, those things are so cool looking. 2 seconds later, I'm like, whoa, my God, what was that? The two of them poop bombed my truck.
From like front to back.
Front to back. Stem to stern, as they say, Nicole. All over my truck. Pooped everywhere. I'm like, and that's what I get for appreciating the majesty, the beauty.
They're like, don't appreciate me. I'll crap on your truck.
Yeah, I don't need your appreciation. I kill rabbits. So yesterday I'm sitting in my office and I hear a thud and what sounds like a deflating balloon that just goes like that. And I look outside and this hawk, no kidding, is like this big. And I look out the window and I see him just go, and he's looking at me because they're very like observant. And I got my phone and I pulled it up and he was gone. That fast.
And while you're jibber jabbering, Alex Kilpatrick sent in a super chat.
Oh, thanks, Alex. That's why I did that.
He putting in an official request for an updated version on how to navigate a lumberyard video.
Look, sometimes things are perfect just the way they are, right? It will never get better than Nicole as the lumber girl, the lumberyard girl.
Well, what do you want?
Chewing gum.
Chewing gum.
All right, enough stupid stories.
Yes.
Thanks for the super chats, everybody. We really appreciate it.
do.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bob says they wanted